back at WNST, Towson, Baltimore, and WNST.net. Back in the cockpit and doing some radio here on the backside of what was a crazy week and a half out in Yellowstone and chasing Pearl Jam around and doing all that stuff. And this guy does college football for a living, and Bill Bender's been covering for Sporting News for a long, long time. You can follow him out at Bill Bender 92. Bill, I must say, there was a time when July and August was relegated to, if you were going to have a problem on a college campus, it was a kid not making his grades, it was a kid stealing snow crab legs or doing something stupid with a girl. The coaching thing and what's happened this summer, specifically in the Big Ten, and you're out in the big part of the Big Ten, out in Columbus, where it really matters, and what's going on with Ohio State now with Maryland, this has been a foundational rocking of college football. And, dude, we're still 2 weeks away from kicking a football in anger, right?
Yeah, I mean, Nestor, unfortunately, I've spent the last 2-3 weeks covering scandals when I'd like to be, kind of teeing it up for week one. So, yeah, I mean, to your point, I think these scandals in the Big Ten in particular have really taken hold. I don't know what to make. I mean, I'm sure we'll get into both, but I think both have been a real bad black eye on the Big Ten, which heading into the season, might be the most competitive conference in the country, but these two scandals have certainly weighed that down.
Well, you got two other ends of the spectrum, too. I mean, Ohio State, where they think they're going to win a national championship every year, and Maryland, where DJ Durkin's the latest savior to come in amidst all of this Under Armour money and what's going on in the program. And lo and behold, here, and let's start with Maryland. We'll get out to your part of the world, and we'll even get on to, they're actually going to play football. Maybe not in Maryland, but in other places, there's going to be a national championship picture this year, and Heisman's and all that good stuff. But for Maryland, there's none of that, And, look, I've lived through the Orioles summer here this year where they're 50 games out of first place in August, and I don't think anybody thought Maryland was going to be great or maybe even beyond interesting if they could find a quarterback or be a 500 team, but this is a whole different level of sort of destitute and on the back end of Len Bias, and I sort of relive that every June 19th, Bill, because I was around during that stuff. I don't know how the franchise of the Terps and the brand of the Terps in the Big Ten is going to survive this thing on a football side over the next 5 to 10 years. I don't know how it's ever going to get any better here. And on the backside of this, we have this child, these parents, the litigation, all of the stench that's going to come out of the backside of this. But from a football perspective, this is a real rocking of a program that thought it was headed in the right direction.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think one of those things, I've been talking this through with David Steele, one of our NFL writers and a Maryland alum. And
a frequent visitor here, by the way, and a good man, too.
Yeah, David does a fantastic job. And, I grew up in Big Ten country, and we were kind of going back and forth about it. And I said, when you live in Columbus, you always hear things like Maryland or Rutgers was bad for the Big Ten and all this kind of stuff. And, in this particular case, I almost think the Big Ten was bad for Maryland because, and hear me out on this, because
sure,
you get into a conference where football is everything. You get into a conference where I would contend that most Maryland fans don't know, and this isn't a disrespect in any way, they either don't know or don't care where Kinnick Stadium is, for example. And yet they get into a conference where it's an arms race to win in the Big Ten East, and they did some things a little bit differently. And I think the most disturbing part of the ESPN report wasn't, other than the fact that a kid died, was, the treatment of, the strength and conditioning coach who was let go, doing some, in my mind, in 2018, some pretty JV things with the players.
Well, I have wondered aloud, and I'll continue to wonder this aloud, and I've talked about this at length this week about whether you want to play football for Tony Dungy or you want to play basketball for Bobby Knight, right? And somewhere in between compassion and treating men like men, and then there's you have to carry an egg in your underwear for a week, and we're going to haze you and tape you to the goalpost and water cool. I'm still hard pressed to think that stuff could still. Maybe I'm just stupid. Maybe I'm naive to think this is still happening in 2017 and 18 on college campuses where they just have to march to a different beat, where everybody has Snapchat and where, women go into the Oval Office carrying recording devices now, right? So everybody is one embarrassment away from being a Me Too movement or being fired. But then you have somebody die and all of the cracks of the foundation open up for everybody's story about everything. And, it does make you wonder when people say, well, this goes on in every program. Every program, there's a fat guy that everybody's calling fat, and they're trying to get him skinny, and they're giving him Paris Island tough love, and the military does it, and you're bred to be a tough guy and tough guy and tough guy. I don't know. In the modern era, we've seen even in the NFL where the hazing thing and the Richie Incognito thing and the war of words and how important the words are. But this is college. These are kids. But they're not kids at Alabama. At least I don't see them as kids at Alabama. I see them as a money machine. You know what I mean?
No, it is. And I think in DJ Durkin's case, this was a case where when you come from a program like Michigan, and he worked for Urban Meyer at Florida, obviously, that you think that this isn't uncommon where a guy comes into a program that was struggling and shows a lot of tough love, and, some guys transfer. And it is worth noting that some of the guys in that story transferred. But at the same time, I did think that Wallace Lowe's statement and David Evans' statement, it was strong. I get that. Where they made a mistake, in my opinion, was they were quick to separate the coaching staff from the training staff from themselves. And if you're in a big-time program nowadays, the coaching staff, the training staff, the athletic department, they all have to be working together. Because this is a different problem than what Ohio State's going through. But the thing at Ohio State right now is you have a clear disconnect between the athletic department and the coaching staff and the coach and his coaches.
It's all about special privilege and special rules, right? I mean, let's be honest, right. Bill. I mean, you cover college football for a living. Every one of these campuses you walk on, even at places where football sucks, like Indiana or Purdue, wherever, there's still a level of entitlement and a special class of citizenship and seemingly a special set of rules that some people feel like they follow. And I feel like in the modern era where protocol is everything, I sort of get the feeling that every time a kid drops dead anywhere or something bad happens where heads roll, like in Ohio State, another situation where heads are rolling, that everywhere else they wouldn't be doing this. But, I say this, and it's not under your watch, but college basketball under the watch of the FBI right now, right? Like after 40 years of being the ugliest, dirtiest business ever, they've never cleaned their act up in an era where text messages, video, all of that's available to sort of pin you to the crime,
Uh-huh. Yeah, no, you're not wrong. And I think with football, these two cases show. So I'll start with Maryland, and we can go through both if you want. But with Maryland, I just don't know. I get the protocol. I get that they're going to do an investigation. I don't know personally what that investigation is going to turn up that kind of saves DJ Durkin's job. But we shall see. I think in Columbus, Nestor, I'm going to be honest, the temperature changes by the day.
Sure.
One day I wake up and I think, he followed protocol. There isn't enough on the board to fire him. Urban Meyer, he may serve a suspension, but he'll be on the sideline. Then other days I'm thinking, what if he doesn't want to serve a suspension? What if he digs in and kind of puts the pressure on the president and the board of trustees and they let him go? Because, again, I'm close to a 40-year-old man, and I've grown up in Central Ohio, lived here most of my life. I lived out in Charlotte for a while, but Ohio State's won my whole life. It's not about the coach. I mean, it's just, in this case,
well, to your point, you said that the temperature changes every day. The temperature's going to change too on September 1st if they win, when they win, and then September 8th when they win, and then September, and they're all of a sudden they're going to be 5-0. They're playing Penn State for whatever it's going to be, and it's going to be business as usual, no matter who's behind the bench, right? I mean that
right.
Business is going to go on, and they're going to win football games probably. And at Maryland, it's just going to be awful, like it's always kind of been, like just different kind of awful, right?
And that's the thing. I thought DJ was the right guy for that program because it is tough being in this division. And that's kind of to my point. I mean, he comes in, they get a top 25 recruiting class. They start recruiting in that area of the country in which you live, which is full of good high school football talent, as you know. I mean, you get in that Mideastern part of the country, there's 4- and 5-star guys all the way through Virginia up to New Jersey. And he was doing well with that. They had a bowl season. Again, they're in a tough division because I think the toughest part for Maryland now is that the Buckeyes and Michigan State and Penn State are all full go right now. I think things at Michigan aren't nearly as bad as people are pretending they are. they're going to be really good this year.
You do live in Columbus. They always pretend things are bad in Michigan.
Yeah. Well, I just think, somebody has to finish fourth in this division every year, and it could be somebody else this year. So, but yeah, with Ohio State, the point I was trying to make is, yeah, Urban Meyer's probably won these games as well as anybody in Columbus since Woody Hayes, but Woody Hayes got fired, and Jim Tressel got resigned. And it's not out of the scope for me that if Urban Meyer got let go, would I be totally surprised? Probably not. But, like you said, this is a different era. I think in some ways college football hasn't evolved. And whether or not Urban Meyer and DJ Durkin are on the sideline, this ought to be a signal to those athletic departments that you better evolve. Because I think everything you said is on point, Well,
wait, you're gonna charge them with being educators and leaders of young men, and I'm gonna send my child down. He's gonna come home dead. That's not a good look, obviously. But on top of all of that is the amount of money that's involved in the litigation. You promise these guys tens of millions of dollars. You make them the highest paid guy in the state, and then something goes wrong, whatever that is, on their watch, under their big tree, and one lie leads to one cover-up leads to how do we fire a guy we owe $25 million to, right?
Right, and that's kind of where we're at. I mean, yeah, and I wouldn't be surprised. The other option here, I do think when Meyer made his statement back when this thing really heated up, that it took resignation off the table. I think they could part ways because I do believe even if Urban Meyer's let go, there's probably half the Power of 5 would be on the phone with him, trying to get him to go there eventually.
It is amazing. Everybody's disgrace is the next guy's opportunity, right? Like literally.
Yeah, I mean that's how this works. I mean Jim Tressel is the president of a university right now. So, I mean, I'm not going to speak to the morality of that decision, but
I got to laugh because I'll cry, right? I mean, it's just there really is no punitive damage done to any of these coaches until the FBI starts putting college basketball coaches in prison. Like literally, that's the only thing it's gonna. None of the guys ever go to jail for any of this, and they all seem to work the next week, right? I mean, Maryland was all hot and bothered to hire Leach last time around, literally.
Yeah, and I think with this, keeping that in mind, that with Meyer, we'll see. And I do know that football does carry a power here, but there are some. What's been another tragedy of this thing is Zach and Courtney Smith's public life has become kind of the referendum on the football team, and it's been ugly. That's been the ugly. I'll say this: I've been doing this for a while for us at SN, and I don't know if I've seen anything this bizarre in terms of what's getting out there. I know Friday McMurphy had a story that had some details that I'm just not going to get into on your show because it's just I can't believe I was typing those in a story. So I'll leave it at that.
We are family entertainment here, Bill. Yeah, right. but all that being said, you could talk about the salaciousness and violence and this and that, but then you have a young man that dies here from our community in Maryland, and it's not just going to go away. I mean, you're one of the first conversations I've had, and there's going to be all sorts of. Like I said, the cracks in the foundation open up, and you never know what you're going to find. Bill Bender's here. He does college football, not just the scandal side. Like, he actually watches the games and stuff. He's Bill Bender 92 out on Twitter, as well as out at Sporting News, and trying to get ready for the actual season. Bill, take me into the season a little bit, and I don't want to be too remote with you, but obviously I'm covering football, and we just won a Stanley Cup around here, and our baseball team's 50 games. I'm just assuming Alabama's going to win the national championship this year until you tell me something different, but we don't think national championship football around here even before we have kids die. And obviously that won't be something with Maryland, but make me a case for some teams this year that are going to make some noise.
No, I think, the top of the sport's been monopolized a little bit. I think the short list of teams that are serious about winning the whole thing include Alabama, Clemson. Clemson's going to be really good. They've got a defensive line with 4 first-round picks on it, and that's ridiculous.
Well, as long as the Ravens get one up next year, I'm happy with that, so that's fine.
Yeah, if you get one of those guys, you're going to probably have them for a decade. They're all good. I think Oklahoma and the Big 12 will still be who they are. The Big Ten East and Wisconsin, the Big Ten East, those 4 schools I was talking about, I mean, any one of them, I think Ohio State, Penn State, Michigan, or Michigan State, if you told me any one of those 4 teams was in the playoff in January, I'd say, yeah, it makes sense because it's a really good conference. And I think out west, Washington and Stanford are going to be pretty good. A lot of good storylines with college football, but again, it's kind of like, You ever hear that joke about the World Cup in Germany, and they didn't win it this year, but I tell the people this joke every year. It's not really a joke. It's just my way of looking at college football is the season doesn't really start until Alabama loses, and I don't know if they're going to lose in the regular season.
Well, that's a bold statement, but not anything any of us are going to be shocked about. I've heard so much about Washington, right? And maybe there's just some heat coming out of the pack on them for where they are, but they are sort of the great Western hope this year, right?
They are. I mean, the big Pac-12 had a miserable bowl season. They went 1-8. They had a lot of just things didn't go their way. But I do think Washington and Stanford are solid. Stanford's got a Heisman Trophy candidate in the backfield. Washington's got a 4-year starter at quarterback in Browning, pretty good running back in Myles Gaskin, good defensive line, and a chance to prove it right out of the go. I mean, the best thing for Washington is they get to play Auburn first. They get to go over to Atlanta, and if they smack Auburn around on the football field, they're going to get some credit for that. I think USC will be pretty good. And UCLA, it might take a while, but I am thrilled that Chip Kelly's back in college football where he belongs. So, I mean, that's a conference that needs, obviously, a little boost on the national profile, but I think they'll get it.
Well, we got good kickoff. You like the kickoff games? I mean, I sort of do. It always feels like the teams aren't really ready the way you want them to be, and whatever they are on September 1st, there's something different by November 15th or whatever. But I do like that college football has pushed these matchups. Sometimes they're in weird places, and, who's the home team and who's giving a home game and away game and next year and all that. But I do like waking up to good football to start the season. We thought we had that with Texas and Maryland, but who knows what that's going to be at this point, right?
No, good games. Texas, Maryland will have some intrigue, obviously, with the coaches on both sides. Because remember, Tom Herman was blamed for tipping off Brett McMurphy. That's the bizarre world I'm living in. And I think Texas in year two, it's an interesting opener for them. Michigan, Notre Dame's obviously going to get a ton of attention. I mentioned Auburn, Washington. I think Alabama, we're all going to wait and see for Tua Tagovailoa, what's next for him and Jalen Hurts. And, yeah, it's a fun week one. And unfortunately, like I said, spending most of my August, writing and talking about Maryland and Ohio State, I haven't been able to – I know the games are there. I've looked at them all off.
Yeah, you'll be ready for real football games once they start. And the other thing is the NFL doesn't play the first weekend. So when Miami and LSU get together, Virginia Tech, Florida State, they become, games everybody stops, I think, for the first week. I think Louisville, Alabama is interesting too.
The first weekend's so fun for me. Not this week 0 that they're doing, first
right,
with like Colorado State and Hawaii, but when you get that Thursday night opener against Northwestern and Purdue, I think that's a fun game in the Big Ten, believe it or not. They're both going to score a bunch of points. And get into the Saturday matchups, like you said. I mean, West Virginia, Tennessee play. That's a fun game. And then, like you said, Miami, LSU, and then Virginia Tech, Florida State on Labor Day. That's a huge ACC crossover game. Probably the biggest ACC crossover game on the schedule. And they're playing on Labor Day. So, yeah, it's a wonderful weekend. I'm ready to get into that. I think, from the time they'll play that Thursday game to the end, it's like it's an 100-day rush to the playoff, and it is so much fun. And I hope we don't lose sight of that as we get into the season.
Well, Bill, I have a feeling Maryland's never going to be a factor in any bowl conversation this year, other than under scandal. So I'll call you back at the next site of scandal. But I promise the next time we get together, we'll actually talk about football because football will be being played at that point. So I'll bother you sometime around week 5 or 6. Always great to visit with you. Thanks for making time for us, Bill.
Oh, anytime. Thanks so much for having me on.
You got it. Bill Bender does it as well as anybody out in Columbus. Oh, how I hate Ohio. He is Bill Bender, 9-2 in Columbus, Ohio, as well as out at the Sporting News. You can follow him there, a FWAA member. And I didn't even get on him about Ohio U grad, but I'll get him next time on that. I spent half a month and a weekend out in Ohio. Out in Canton with Ray Lewis earlier in the month. Go follow Bill Bender, Bill Bender 92 out on Twitter. Big shout out to all of our WNST sponsors, including our friends at King Discount Liquors, Lottery Beer, Booze, and the best prices in Baltimore. Get out, give the King a ring. Also, our friends at Sporticulture. I'm going to be bringing those Raven. I'm going to have beautiful purple and gold flowers in here all year, courtesy of our friends at Sporticulture. I'll be telling you more about that. Visit them at Sporticulture, local company, doing NFL licensed flowers. It's going to be awesome. My set's going to look good. It's going to smell good. I'm going to have a hard time keeping my cat out of the plants, though. Make sure we don't do that as well. Big shout out to our friends as well at Pizza John's, my mom's favorite pizza, my wife's favorite pizza, my favorite cheesesteaks and my favorite pizza too, but I had a cheesesteak there the other night, and people were yelling, like, where's the pizza? It was in the box. It's in my refrigerator. Got leftovers. You don't go to Pizza John's and just come home empty-handed like that. Pizza John's, Back River Neck Road in Essex. They've been there 50 years. I've been on the planet 50 years beginning October 14th. We have a trip to Nashville, WNST road trip. I still have space. We are closing it down this week. I have deadlines from the airline. So if you want to go to Nashville, toss me a note. Go to the road trips tab at WNST.net. You can find me on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, streaming live on our Facebook, as well as our YouTube, WNSTV channel. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.